Hi, everybody. My name is Jack. I'm a food addict, compulsive eater. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day off that gray sheet. Write those meals down. Call them into my qualified gray sheet sponsor. Abstinence today is the most important thing in my life without exception. I'm absent by the grace of God and all of you. And just feel so amazed. I just heard an incredible speaker right before this meeting, and I heard one this morning at 9 a.m. And GreySheet has become this wonderful part of my life, and I love being with you all. I love it, love it, love it. I feel at ease. I just feel like, one of my GreySheet sponsors who I met in Cambridge, Mass, a guy, he no longer lives in Boston, but he used to say, what he would say is, if you're here in GreySheet, you're not here by accident. This is really the last house on the block. And then he would say to me, just be Jack. I don't know if I've heard kinder words, just be Jack. And that's the story of my life. I've tried to make myself too big, too small, too this, too that. And in GreySheeters, and we were talking about that the last meeting about, GreySheet has loved me until I loved myself. And that's been a long time. So you gotta, like they say, you have to stick around for the miracle. And that's certainly a miracle. Um, geez, the food was so important to me. And I was a skinny kid, and I was active in sports and all kinds of things like that. And I was hyper, I probably had ADD or whatever the hell, I had something. It wasn't good. You couldn't keep me still. And, and I loved it. We were always out and active and all that. And, I guess the food, really started to catch up to me. I was out of the military about 7 or 8 months. I had to get down to the Caribbean at that time. I stayed down there for about a couple of years, and especially in Martinique. I lived in Trozy-Lay and right across the whatever that is, from St. Pierre, the capital. And then I moved up into the rainforest and down into St. Anne Parish. And I just loved it. And it really helped me to debrief. And a lot of that was about the food there. I just adored the food there. And I was just fortunate enough that I could do that. And I when I came back, I started a restaurant and bar supply company in Philadelphia, and I really thought, I came out of an alcoholic home. My mother committed suicide. I was 12, and I really thought, my variations of God, Zen, the Zen Buddhists say that Zen is a misunderstanding of a misunderstanding, and it's just God is, as I misunderstand God, and my understanding of God back then was God was doing this because I grew up in an alcoholic home. Now I'm going to make a fortune on these drunks, and I didn't know there was food addicts. I had no idea, but I really had a long progression with the booze, a long progression with the food. And I came, I moved up I sold that company about 12, 13, 14 years later, and moved up to Massachusetts on the border of Vermont and New Hampshire. And then I finally moved up to Vermont. But I started going to OA after I was in the other fellowship for about a year. I'd say about 1986 or 1987. And I thought I could get it by osmosis. And I really did, I really thought, if there is a God, I'm not gonna have to do all this stuff that they're telling me, because I'm special. And so OA 90 was kind of like a drive-through for me. And it took me a long time. And I was at an OA meeting here in Brattleboro, Vermont, 16, 17 years ago. And this woman was there, and she had these eyes, these floodlight eyes that were like beaming. And it was a 90-day OA 90, and she was the only one that could chair the meeting because she had over 90 days. She had 12 years back then. And she was just magnificent. And she brought in all these speakers from Boston. And one day she brought this person in from Peterborough, Sally. And I just couldn't. She reminded me of just a Marine Corps colonel. I mean, I wanted to salute, get up, and So I used to go over to Peterborough all the time, which is a 20-minute ride from Brattleboro, Vermont. And I went there, and finally one day she said to me, as a Tuesday night meeting, 50, 60 people in a room, 20, 25 people that are gray sheet. And I was so afraid of her. She asked me, I was weighing out my fat one day, and the fat we used, it's in a stick. I thought I would had the whole, I thought that was, I would have a whole stick at each meal. And so I was too afraid to get the measurements and all. And finally, she said, Jack, we can't help you here. And her husband, George, was just nodding. It was like a Greek tragedy. And he was nodding in the background. She gave me directions to 11 Garden Street. And I had been going to OA in Medford. So it's a 2.5 hour round trip, 5 hour round trip for me. So it wasn't out of the question for me. I was willing, but I didn't have any comprehension of the food, none. And I had some power over it. I'm a runner, and I'm a faster, I'm a starver, and so I could get it off that way. And I didn't, I didn't throw anything up. If I could have, I would have. Let me tell you. And so I started going to Garden Street. And as soon as I walked in there, the first speaker, matter of fact, her and I last year led the Connecticut retreat together. I just adore her. We're very close. And she said, if you want to know why you ate, stop eating. And then she said, this is the only thing that has given me the ability to reparent myself. Then she took me out to get a scale and to read labels. Now, back then I was so consumed in self, in AA a long time. So consumed, I didn't ask her, she's a professional person, a professional woman. And I didn't say, hey, do you have anything better to do? Or anything like that. It took me about 10 years to figure that one out. And she was amazing, just amazing. And I left Gray Sheet after 4.5 years of abstinence, and I left my life too. It was really, I had a child who was transitioning, really hard stuff, very, very painful stuff. I was here in Vermont, and I went to war against the state of Vermont and the school district and all that. And anyway, I left Gray Sheet, came back in 6 years. One of our members, several, but one in particular in Long Island, called me for 6 years, called me on the phone. You're not saying you better get back to Gray Sheet, blah, blah, blah. So I was abstinent for about 5 years last year. And I had something in my mind. And the disease centers in my mind. It truly does. It's awful, awful, awful. I mean, I just did the Connecticut retreat. I just graduated from yoga. I'm going to be 73 next Sunday, All Saints Day, I might add. And I got to tell you something. I graduated a year-long process. That woman who brought Gray Sheet to Brattleboro also did a yoga teacher training. So I went to the guy there who I knew. And he not only said he'd be honored if I took the course, but he gave me a full scholarship for it. I mean, I am really, really blessed. And I did that. And some other things were happening because of my younger child. And I have insurance up the yin yang, but they were putting down the wrong things and I have military insurance. I'm retired military. And so they weren't going to pay. And so I had about almost $380 worth, $380,000 worth of medical bills. And they attached my house. 2018, right about now, they foreclosed on it. Then I dropped a container of food I eat for breakfast. And I didn't know that this little piece here, this little piece of plastic here, the surgeon gave it to me. This is wrapped in this is my hospital thing here. He gave it to me in a little thing. This is my keepsake. It cut off my lower bowel, twisted it, perforated it. He said, you have to come in for emergency surgery. So I did that. One of our members who literally just called me, it's crazy, from Michigan, called up a hardware store here in town in Brattleboro. They walked the scale over to me. My sponsor who walked me through it said, just tell them you were pre-diabetic. Because when I came in, the last time I was 120 pounds over, high blood pressure, pre-diabetic, and that's gone. It's gone. And so I left Gray Sheet for about 4 months. And I had a prayer partner. And she said, what can I do? I had something in my mind. I just said, you know, I'll just say, I got to go. And that 5 minutes, thanks so much, Sarah. And so I said, don't abandon me. I have no idea where those words come. 4.5 months later, and I got to tell you, I broke 3 crowns during that 4 month period. I have great insurance, military, so I had to have like 6 full crowns put in, 4 half, 4 3/4 crowns put in for my bite, and that's from the food, and the sugar. And so one day I'm meditating, and I talk to her every day, and during my relapse, and January 31st, I got the message on the pillow, you better get your ass back down to Westport. Now that's a 6 hour drive round trip, and that doesn't matter. I'm not saying that to impress upon you, but just how important Gray Sheet was to me. I didn't know if I was going to come. I woke up the next morning, 3 o'clock, whatever it was. I packed all 3 meals, drove my butt down to Westport, had a wonderful meeting. The person who shared was from Cambridge. She had a 16-year relapse, and she was abstinent for 16 years. So it was made in heaven for me. When I left the Westport meeting, I pulled my car over. I thought of this guy who I absolutely adore, who I sat with in Soldiers and Sailors, and I asked him if he could help me, and he said yes. And I just got to say, these days, today, I love my food. I love my abstinent. I'm abstinent a little under the first. It will be 9 months back, and you know, I have this has been amazing for me, and everything is as supposed to be. It really brought me down back to a place of true love. I'm in love with Gray Sheet. I can't write a love story, but I can tell you I'm in love with Gray Sheet, man. I'm telling you. And I've just been, and I gained 45 pounds. I couldn't do yoga. I stopped teaching during that 4 month. So that's what the food takes away, just like that. Boom, boom, boom. This month, my daughter was married, beautiful wedding on a mountain. 10 days later, her mother died of alcoholism. 60 years old. It ain't alcoholism, it's alcoholism. And I held her hand while she was dying. She died, and I saw her take her last breath. And I didn't have to eat over any of that stuff because I come here to know that Gray Sheet works under any and all conditions, no matter what, no matter what, no matter what. And you know, I lost all that weight, um, and I just have this love in my heart that's been amazing. And you all have been such a beautiful gift for me. I mean, I read the Radiant Sutras every day. That's not a Gray Sheet, what do you call it? It's not an AA literature. But that's what I see here, the radiance, the Gray Sheet glow, this blooming glow. And I believe it's from the integrity of weighing and measuring our food without exception. And I had to talk to one of the people I sponsor. She needed to figure out, you know, on the Gray Sheet and all. My sponsor walked me through that. I walked that person through it. And you guys give me the peace and the wherewithal to help others. And then you help me. So I can't thank you all enough. And I don't eat no matter what.